Welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to teach you how to influence the people who are around you and how to positively change everyone that you come in contact with. Let's dive in. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how you scientifically, whatever it is that you expect, you usually end up creating in your life. And I want you to think about this. Is it possible to expect something to happen, and just by you expecting it to happen, you make it to happen? Sure, it is. It's actually something that's called a Pygmalion effect. It is a psychological phenomenon where whatever you expect of someone, they will create within themselves. So what you expect in others, what you also expect within yourself, you will actually create in others, or you'll create in yourself. And this is super important for parents. It's important for teachers. It's important if you are a manager, a leader in some sort of way, any in work environment, but also any relationship that you have with another person. I'm going to give you a couple studies that have to deal specifically with children, but then I'm also going to give you studies after that that deal specifically with adults. And so when I'm speaking about children, it ain't just children. It's just living, breathing humans. So at its core, the Pygmalion effect happens when one person's expectations for another person's behavior actually brings that behavior to reality. And so basically, I expect someone to be a certain way, and they actually will be that way. And so where this came from was in 1968, there was a study that was done by Rosenthal and Jacobson. And what happened was they were curious, if we take a group of children and we bring them into a classroom and we tell the teacher something about some of the students, could that change based off of the teacher's expectations? Could that change the actual reality of these children based off of the teacher's expectations of them? So what they did was they took a random group of children and they put them into a classroom for an academic year, and this is an elementary school, for an academic year with a teacher. And what they did was, out of those children, they chose a random group of 20% of them. They were just random. And they called them the bloomers. And they said to the teacher, and the teacher had no idea that this wasn't true, they said, based off of IQ tests, these 20% are the ones that we're calling the bloomers. This is their names, and these are the ones we actually think are going to make the biggest jump based off of what we see in them, the tests that they've gone through, their IQ, that they're going to have the biggest jump this academic year in their studies and their knowledge in their IQ. The only thing about it, though, was this was completely random. This was not based in reality in any sort of way. Then after that year, they brought the students back in, and they brought the teacher back in, and they looked at all of the students' scores and how they did. The students, the 20% that were the quote-unquote bloomers, just the random kids that they chose that were the quote-unquote bloomers, those bloomers, those students, showed a significant increase in performance over the academic year when compared to the rest of the 80% of the other children. Now, you have to realize this did not come from their innate capabilities, but it came from the teacher's expectations and belief in them. And the teachers were told that these kids were smarter. And because the teachers thought these kids are smarter, they are the bloomers, they treated them as such. So their expectations of what they had in their mind ended up dictating their behaviors when associating with these children. So they put more time into them, they challenged them more, they thought more highly of them, and because of all of this, the children thought more highly of themselves. They ended up taking on to being challenged. They started thinking more of themselves, and they started performing way better than all the other children. And those children, the ones that were the quote-unquote bloomers, aka random children that they just call bloomers, had a significant jump in the scores that they had opposed to the rest of the children. And it has nothing to do with their innate capabilities, but the teacher's expectations. This is basically a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so this is really important when you look at it and you realize, okay, for those of you guys that are parents or you want to be parents at some point in time, it's really important to understand the role of your expectations for your children and what becomes of them in their childhood development. You know, when you look in the early childhood development, the Pygmalion effect shows the impact of positive reinforcement and expectations for the children, high expectations for them. Now, when I say high expectations, I want to be very clear on this because I've coached many people who have had, like for instance, I've seen a lot of people who have parents who are in the military, and because their parents were in the military, this is a vast generalization, just so you know. But I've seen a lot of people who have parents who are in the military, and because they are taught in the military to be very tough and hard on them and have really high expectations, because that's what the military has for them, they do that to their children. And so when I say high expectations, I don't mean like ridiculously high, like when a child comes home with an A, it's like, why did you not get an A plus? Not those type of expectations that then actually lower the child's self-belief, but the expectations of what you actually believe is possible for them, right? If you expect, for instance, that your child is smart and your child is gifted, then there's a much better chance that you're going to interact with them differently. And because the way that you interact with them differently, they start to have more self-belief in themselves, they put more effort into it, and they actually become smarter. That's actually what happens, because a lot of times what's happening is we as humans get our self-belief and our identity and our perception of ourself from watching other people interact with us. And so, on the other side of that, if you expect that your child is slower because, someone told them that one time, or because they failed one test and you think that they're slower, you will, because of your expectations, treat them differently. You will treat them as such, and they will not advance as quickly as other children. On the other side of that, if you expect that your children are kind and they're sweet, they will be more kind around you. You will be more kind around them. And when they are around, you will be more kind to others to show them exactly how to be kind, because they're looking at you for how to understand how to work with the world. So your expectations of that child will change the way that you interact with them, you interact with the world around them, the way you speak to yourself, the way you speak to others when that child happens to be around, and it will then dictate what becomes of that child. Now, this is really, really important, and that's why it's important to monitor the way that you speak to your children. But, not to the point of just having so much positive affirmation that's the only thing that you say. But it's about, there is obviously a fine line. But also not only just the way you speak to your children, but also the way that you speak to yourself around your children, because your children will learn how to speak to themselves based off of the way you speak to yourself and also the way you speak to them, but also the way that you speak to yourself, but also the way you speak to others around your children. Because children are actually like a sponge. They are unconsciously sensing everything around them, especially the adult around them, their parents' attitudes, and they adjust their own self-concept based off of what they see and the feedback that they receive. So if you look at that, what's a really good way to use this? Well, research has shown that it's super important to praise a child based off of their effort rather than innate ability. That way they learn that effort is the important thing to come in, the reason why is because you can control effort. You can't control innate ability. And so it's important to praise them for their effort so they realize that effort is a big thing to put in. Positive expectations in a child supports their journey in achieving whatever it is that they want in their positive expectations of themselves versus having a negative expectation of themselves. And so it allows them to learn to start to challenge themselves, to accomplish more, and to have a environment where that's something that is praised, is to go for more, to put in the effort, to try to become better, instead of having just lower expectations for a child. Now, obviously, I know every parent's like, I want to have the best expectations for my children. But if you're unaware, you're going to have patterns from your parents and the way that you were parented come in as well. And some of them are good and some of them you want to break. Like for instance, how many of you guys that are listening to the podcast had parents who used negative affirmations to get your friends, their children, to do what they wanted them to do? I remember hearing my friends' parents say stuff like, oh, you'll never amount to anything if you keep doing that. Why can't you be more like your brother? Anybody ever heard their friends' parents say that to them? Why are you always you're so lazy? No one likes a child that behaves like that. Like there's all of these things that parents say, sometimes it's just because it's a pattern they learn from their parents. And sometimes it's because they're trying to get their children to do what they want them to do. You're so lazy is what they'll say, thinking that, oh, if I say you're so lazy, then they're going to get up and they're going to clean their room. No, not necessarily. What you're doing is you're actually deepening that pattern of laziness within the child. So knowing what you know now with the Pygmalion effect, think about how everything that I just said that we have heard, maybe your parents said it to you, or maybe you heard your friend's parents say it to them, of how that affects a child or even just a person's, adults, a teenager, whatever it might be, self-belief, and could completely change the course of their whole lives based off of that. In this, when you speak negatively about somebody, it's the opposite side of the Pygmalion effect, which is actually called the Golem effect. And so the Golem effect is the negative side of it, which shows that the negative impact on low expectations on a child or another person. So if a parent is very skeptical and they just deal with skepticism, or they have very low expectation of a person or a child, it will lead to poor outcomes for that person. And it's a cycle that's frequently seen in education and occupational settings as well. So the same way that the Pygmalion effect, the teachers, hey, these are the smarter kids. Well, if a teacher, they've actually found based off of studying teachers and their body language of what children they think are smarter, what children they think are dumber. If a teacher thinks that a child is slower or dumb, a lot of times they put less time into them because in their mind, they just have come to the conclusion of what's the point? What's the point? This child's not getting it anyways. And in turn, that child learns and grows less. And so, I've mostly given childhood and children examples, but the exact same thing is true for adults, for your work environment, for your friendships, for your romantic relationships. And the reason why is because I'm going to say what I said before. Most people are so unaware of themselves, even as adults, that they are looking to other people to show them who they are. And some of you guys need to hear this because you're so unaware of yourself that you're looking to other people to show you who you are. And so there's a guy named Sterling Livingston that took the Pygmalion effect and tried it out as management styles with adults in work environments. And he found that it was also true there as well. And so it's a thing that he created and says now it's called Pygmalion in management. And so this is one of the things he actually said, and I'm going to quote him. It says, "Some managers always treat their subordinates in a way that leads to superior performance, but most unintentionally treat their subordinates in a way that leads to lower performance than they are capable of achieving. The way managers treat their subordinates is subtly influenced by what they expect of them. If managers' expectations are high, productivity is likely to be excellent. If the expectations are low, productivity is likely to be poor. It is as though there were a law that caused subordinates' performance to rise and fall to meet the manager's expectations." And so what he basically suggests is that managers often set the performance bar of whoever it is that they're managing or whoever it is they're leading through their own expectations, whether they're aware of it or not. If they have high expectations, not like ridiculously high, like, hey, we're going to sell $12 million this month when you've never cracked 100,000, but higher expectations and true belief in getting there and your people being able to get there, and just in general in your people, high expectations tend to yield higher productivity. Lower expectations stifle people's potential. And so Livingston's analysis shows and highlights the fundamental truth that our reality and people around us, all of this is changeable and it's subject to our own perceptions of the world around us. And so when a manager has high expectations, employees are more productive, they're more committed, they're more innovative. On the other side, when they have low expectations of people or a specific person, there's a massive decrease in the employee's performance and their engagement as well. So when we look at this, basically what it's saying is our expectations of people that are around us, whether that's a child, whether that's an adult, whether that is our friend, whether that is our significant other, what we expect of them is going to change the way that we interact with them. And based off of the way that we interact with them, they are usually going to show up and prove our expectations of them true. So how can we use this? How can we use it to make our own lives better, but also make other people's lives around us better as well? Well, the first thing is this. I recommend that you set high but realistic expectations. So it's really important to believe in the potential of children, of the people who work with you, of your significant other, of your friends. But in these expectations, they need to be attainable, but really more than anything else, at the pace of their development if it's a child, or to allow someone to expand themselves a little bit, because you just start, I believe that you can get there. I know you've never been there before, but I believe that you can get to X amount in sales this month. And so it's important to set realistic, but high but realistic expectations, and to really try to not lie, but try to convey through your words, through your body language, through your belief, the belief of that person, so they can start to believe in themselves more. Because when they do believe in themselves more, they put more work into it. So that's the first thing. Second thing is to provide consistent feedback. Positive reinforcement should be specific and focus on the person's effort. And so when you take this approach, it will build the confidence of the people that you're around, the people that you work with, your children, all of that, so that when they do come up with challenges and they see those challenges in front of them, they don't get crippled by them, but they see them as opportunities to learn and opportunities to grow. So that's the second thing. Number three is, and this is very important, right, is to model the behavior that you want. You can't just tell someone to be something and then not do it yourself. If you're a manager, you can't just tell someone, hey, you need to go work hard and go for this to hit your goals, and then you're clocking out 3 hours before the end of the day and you're showing up late. Like, you need to actually model the behavior that you want. If you're a parent, be the type of person you want your children to be. You can't tell your children to be kind and then be flipping somebody off on the street and your child's watching you do that, right? Or be screaming out the window or throwing your coffee cup behind you to try to land on the car behind you because they cut you off a mile down the road, whatever it might be. You have to model the behavior that you want. You can't just tell someone to be a certain way. So children learn by observing adults. That's why a lot of times, when you get to your 30s, 40s, 50s, you're like, oh my God, I'm so much like my mom. I'm so much like my dad. Because you model what you need, you learn from what is shown to you. So, if you want your children to persevere, to work hard, to be curious, to be kind, to be loving, to be respectful, be that you want to see in your children. Same thing is for managers. How do you want your team members to be? You want them to be hardworking? Be hardworking. You want them to be resilient? Be resilient. You need to embody what you want of that person. And then the last thing is very important, is to create an environment of encouragement. So many of us, and so many people that I know and so many people I speak to, were raised where parents didn't know anything about psychology. None of them had their psychology degrees, any of that. And so they raised them based off of negative reinforcement. The average child is reprimanded 8 times more than they're praised, which means the average child thinks they're doing something wrong or there's something wrong with them 8 times more than they think there's something right with them. So a lot of parenting in the past has been raising children based off of negative reinforcement. So whether it's at home, whether it's at work, whether it's in the classroom, what we want to do is create an encouraging atmosphere that celebrates small victories, that challenges people to be better, and provides support when someone is challenged, and help them really create a positive self-image of themselves, because whatever someone believes of themselves, they're going to go out and create in the world. And so if we want our children, if we want our people that we lead, if we want our friends, if we want our significant others to be better people, to challenge themselves, to believe in themselves more, we must first embody that and create an environment where that is possible. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories. Tag me at Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. And if you love this podcast, you are definitely going to love something that's coming out that is called Mindset Mentor Plus. I am going to be announcing it soon. But basically, it is going to be for every single episode that I put out, there's going to be detailed worksheets, ways to integrate every single podcast episode into your life. There's going to be journaling prompts to help you journal through them. There's going to be assignments for every single episode to help you get deeper into understanding these and learning these. So you're not just passively learning and listening, but you're actually actively learning, and you're more of a participant in this podcast. And there's also going to be exclusive Q&A sessions with me. There's going to be a lot of other bonuses. There's going to be an entire community that, of other listeners that you get to access and talk to and grow with. So if you're interested in learning more about it, go to mindsetwaitlist.com right now. The founding members, when we do announce it, are going to get a discount. And so we're going to email everybody on the wait list before we announce it on the podcast, before we put it on social media. So if you're interested in learning about that, go to mindsetwaitlist.com right now. And with that, I'm going to leave the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to teach you how to make the best decisions to create the life that you want every single time. Let's dive in. When you look at it, when you zoom back, like life is very simple. It's simple, but it's not easy at all, right? Like it's challenging, that's for sure. And it can really be, life can be boiled down into a series of choices. We all have choices in our life. Sometimes it's just a small choice. Sometimes it's a big choice. Sometimes it's a choice that will change our life. Sometimes it's a choice that really won't change our life at all. But our life can be boiled down to choices that we have in front of us, and then decisions that we make. And with those decisions, we take some sort of action. Now, those decisions, they can be conscious or they could be unconscious. And those decisions, whatever decision we make, have consequences. Every decision has some sort of consequence. It could be good or bad. And at every moment of your life, you're taking action. You're always taking action no matter what it is that you're doing. Even if you're asleep, you're still sleeping. That's still an action. Even if you're just watching TV on the couch, you're still laying on the couch and watching TV. Both of those are actions. And so you're still always taking an action. The question is that action that you're taking in that moment going to get you closer to or further from the goals that you have in your life? And so there's choices, there's decisions, and there's actions. And that's really what it boils down to very simply. When you make decisions in your life, you are deciding who you want to be. That's what it comes down to. You know, there's a great quote that James Clear says. He says, every action that you take is a vote for the person that you wish to become. Every action that you take is a vote for the person that you wish to become. So your alarm goes off and you decide to get up when your alarm goes off. In that moment, a choice has to be made. Am I going to wake up or am I going to hit the snooze button? So there's a choice that has to be made. There's a decision that is right there. So there's choices in front of you. There's a decision that has to be made. And then there is some action. So if you decide to get up, you have made this, there's a fork in the road. You've decided, I'm going to get up, and you take that action. On the other side of that, there's a choice where you don't have to get up. You can hit the snooze button. So let's say the decision is you hit the snooze button. There's a choice that's in front of you. There's a decision that you've made, and there's an action that you're going to do. It's simple. It's not really hard, but our entire life, it comes from what decisions we end up making. If you decide that you want to scroll on Instagram, there's a choice where you can scroll or not scroll. There's a decision of what you're going to do, and there's an action that you decide to make. If you decide to read a book instead of scrolling on Instagram, there's a choice that's in front of you. There's a decision that you're going to do, and there's an action that you're going to take. Your entire life is made up of choices, decisions, and actions. You are made up of all of your decisions and all of your actions that you've decided to make over the course of your life. Every action that you take is a vote for the person that you wish to become. If you decide to go to the gym, you're just deciding to be the type of person who goes to the gym and cares about their fitness. If you decide to, eat fast food, you've decided that you're a person who decides to eat fast food instead of making a choice that's healthier for you. That's what it comes down to. And there's no good or bad or judgment or guilt or shame in this entire thing. I'm just speaking very objectively. That's just the way that life is. The problem is a lot of times what we do is we make bad decisions. We usually make the bad decisions unconsciously, like we're not even really paying attention. We've been doing it for so long, we just continue to do them. So if you go back to the example of like fast food, right? It could be almost an unconscious thing where it's just like, you've been just eating fast food since you were a kid whenever you were hungry. So it's like, I get this craving, I'm hungry. And instead of waiting an extra 20 minutes and going to a place that might be healthier, I decide to go off and get something that's unhealthy for me. And a lot of times it's kind of unconscious. So we need to bring the unconscious choice, decision, action to the forefront of our mind and actually start to work through and see if it's what we want. And so today that's what we're going to really dive into. We're going to talk about how all of those decisions shape our lives and how we can make sure that we start making good decisions and change the bad decisions. And so, when you look at an action, this is what's really crazy about people. And I love people. I love thinking about people and seeing how they became that person and all of that and how they decided to make that choice. An action, when you look at an action of like, oh, I decided to wake up. Oh, I decided not to wake up. They seem really straightforward, but that's just surface level. Beneath the surface, there is a whole computer system that's running in the background. There are a ton of really complex cognitive processes that you have to go through. With each choice that you make, you have filters of your life, in your paradigm, in your worldview of who you think you are, who you think everyone else is in the world. It filters through all of your traumas. It filters through your successes, your failures, your relationship with your parents. And so it's not just like a decision. It's not just an action. This decision comes through and filters, when you have a choice, the decision that comes, it has to filter through all of these things that have happened to you. And that's what's crazy about it. And so I'm going to dive really deep into it so you can kind of see what I'm seeing. But, the decision comes through, goes through a filter, and you decide to make that decision. But, when you look at your conscious and your unconscious mind, your conscious mind is only about 5%. So you can consciously want to make the right choice. And we all want to make the right choice. But 95% of us in our thoughts and our programmings and conditionings and all of that stuff that exists from the moment we were born and became conscious and started having memories to the moment that we're at right now, 95% of our cognitive processing is unconscious. It is below the conscious, the subconscious mind. And so, for instance, it's really interesting. If you want to really dive deep into it, right? And I love diving deep into people. If you decide to scroll on Instagram instead of focusing on your business growth, doing cold calls or knocking on your doors for your brand new business that you have, and you're like, I know I need to make some calls. I know I need to knock on some doors. And then you just start scrolling on Instagram instead of actually doing the thing that you need to do to grow your business, your decision might not really necessarily be driven by a lack of ambition or being lazy, which we would think on the surface, oh, I'm not taking that action because I'm lazy. Oh, I'm not taking that action because I don't have ambition, right? We might think that, but instead it might be a subconscious attempt to get away from potential rejection or criticism. So you might be afraid of being rejected. And so in that millisecond, when you have the choice, your brain automatically just decides to scroll instead of putting yourself out there. And you might be completely unaware of this decision that was just made. But we must become aware of our decisions. And maybe if you were to go back and back and back and back and back and you say, okay, damn, I am noticing I'm afraid of rejection. That's why I decided to scroll on my phone. I am afraid of rejection. Why am I afraid of rejection? Maybe you're afraid of rejection because you start to go back and back and back. When was the first time I felt rejected? Did one of my parents make me feel rejected? Oh my God, my dad used to do X, Y, Z, and it made me feel rejected all the time. And so avoiding putting yourself out there and growing your business is avoiding the rejection. And that's a way to protect yourself. And so our minds develop these defense mechanisms, and it'll try to steer you away from situations that you perceive as threats and try to steer you towards safer territories. And a lot of times, the craziest part about it is we don't even fucking recognize it. That's the crazy part, is it just happens. And we're like, why don't I have the life that I want? Because most of our life is being lived unconsciously, and we're not really going behind the surface. So that means when you really look into it, that each action, whether it's conscious or not, contains some sort of goal, right? More often than not, that goal is aimed at self-preservation. So scrolling, instead of putting yourself out there, is actually a way of you protecting yourself. Do you see that? Because you don't want to be rejected. But you're thinking, oh, well, I'm just lazy. Well, you might not necessarily be lazy. You might not have, it's not that you don't have ambition. It's that you're actually it's a way of self-preservation. You're trying to protect yourself because you felt so rejected as a child by your father. And then, maybe something happened where you had your love of your life in high school when you're so in love and she ended up cheating on you and you felt rejected again. It's like the example I always give to people to kind of distance yourself and take yourself out of it and take humans out of it is if you look and you see an aggressive dog that every time a human walks by, they bark at it, they get really aggressive. That dog was not born aggressive. That aggressiveness is a defense mechanism that it had to create early in its life to survive and to protect itself against something that looked like us, some other human that ended up doing something bad to that dog. It's the same thing as the last example, being afraid of rejection. Right? So it's really interesting when you start to dive into it and you go, oh my gosh, with every action that I take, whether it's conscious or unconscious, there's some sort of goal. And so my goal Could be, I really want to grow my business and that's what I need to focus on. But unconsciously, it's self-preservation. I don't want to be rejected. And so we'll talk about how to work through these things. And so let's dive into those goals and really talk about them. I don't mean like the goals in your life or the big, huge goals. I mean like the hidden goals in your choices and your decisions. Every choice and decision that you have carries some sort of little hidden goal most of the time. So let's say that you're presented with a choice. You can either work out or you can skip the workout, and you choose to exercise. Well, that goal is to lose weight, to improve your health, to live longer. Great, that makes sense to us, right? Let's say you have another choice. You can either read or you can scroll on Instagram, and you choose to read. Great, okay. Well, that goal is to become more intelligent or to hold better conversations, because the more you know, the further that you're gonna go in life. Okay, cool, that makes sense. Okay, let's say we have another choice. Let's say you can either watch Netflix or we can sit down and create a presentation for work. And we choose Netflix. The goal usually in that situation is self-preservation. Why are we not doing the thing that we know we should be doing? Like what's really behind that? We're afraid of public speaking. Okay, why are we afraid of public speaking? I don't want to screw up at it. Why don't you want to screw up at it? Because I don't want to look like a fool in front of my boss. Okay, why don't you want to look like a fool in front of your boss? Because I'm afraid that I'm going to get fired. Okay, why are you afraid that you're going to get fired? Because I remember when I was younger, my mom got fired from our job and we almost lost our house. Holy shit. I'm on Netflix because I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. Right? Like this is a really tedious process to start to understand yourself. But when you start to backtrack, you really start to see how your unconscious worldview creates these little tiny decisions. And you realize, oh my God, I'm not just watching Netflix. I'm trying to avoid this big, huge future that I'm creating in my mind that doesn't really exist because of the time my mom was fired and we almost lost our house when I was a kid. Oh my God, there's so much behind it, isn't there? And then you realize your choices and your decisions are way more complex than you actually think they are. So what do? You procrastinate, you watch trashy reality TV to distract yourself from the uncomfortable feelings of creating the presentation. And you realize it's not that you're just afraid of public speaking, it's afraid that you could make a fool of yourself and lose your job. Wow, it's a lot deeper than you thought it was, right? Let's say there's another choice, right? You can either learn to get better with money, or you can act like it's something that you don't want to learn. And you're like, I don't want to learn that. And so you choose not to learn how to get better with your money. Okay, what's really behind that? Okay, I don't want to put in the hard work and I don't want to learn. And it's uncomfortable once you know like how much there is to learn. And so you just decide not to skip it. You decide to skip it. You decide not to learn how to be good at money, and you don't have any financial freedom. Or it could be even behind that even more. And so I love working through people's psychology around money. Maybe it's that you have an unconscious negative connotation around money. Like for me, I consciously wanted to make money for a long time, and I did it, and it was hard, and I couldn't push myself to do it. And then I started making money and I started spending all of it. And I was like, man, why am I like this? And I started going back and I started going back and started going back. And I was like, what are my first memories around money? What do I remember? And I remember like one of the things that popped up in my head is my mom was a realtor when I was a kid. And I remember every time tax season would come around, she would get so stressed out. I remember I can still see her in my head, sitting at the dining room table, papers all in front of her, doing her taxes, being so stressed out about money. And so if something makes anything in this world as a child makes my mom stressed, would a child say that's a good thing or a bad thing? A bad thing. And so and then there's many other memories that I have of me thinking that money was bad. And so naturally when I wanted to make it, I would stop myself from making it. Naturally when I started making it, I would get rid of it. You know, I had another example of this. I had a client one time and she said she had a hard time saving money. She would make all of this money and then she had a really hard time saving it. She had these very specific rules that she set for herself, and she would break all of those rules. And then we started working on each other. I started working on her. We were working with each other, and I was like, hey, what's behind this? What do you think of money? What are your first memories around money? We started talking about it. And she eventually just blurts out, she goes, I think money's evil. And I was like, okay. You think that it's evil? Tell me more about that. She's like, well, I think it's evil. I remember my mom saying this when I was a kid. I remember my dad saying this as I was a kid. I remember both of them fighting when I was a kid. And I remember them getting in these heated debates about money. And I think I just unconsciously placed a label of money being evil. Well, of course, she's going to have trouble saving money and making money because you're always going to avoid something that you actually think is evil. And so there's all these hidden goals that are like these invisible threads that connect choices that we have to the decisions, to the actions that we make. And all of those things, depending on what it is that we have, are going to change our behavior. They're going to change our lives. They're going to shape our lives. And normally we think of goals as a good thing. And they are good things. We have a goal if we want to set a goal for the month or a goal for the year. But goals can also be these little tiny hidden goals of self-preservation. Like people are say like, Rob, I need to get over procrastination. I procrastinate too much. Like procrastination is my problem. And I say, no. Procrastination is not your problem. Procrastination is the symptom. There's something behind all that. It's like the downstream effect. There's something upstream that is making you want to procrastinate. There's something upstream there's a thought pattern. There's a self-preservation. There is a future that looks terrible in your future that you want to avoid. Procrastination is never the problem. Procrastination is a symptom. The main problem is what we're trying to get back to. Maybe you're procrastinating because you want to avoid rejection. You don't want to look stupid. You don't want to make yourself uncomfortable. You're afraid of being seen. You don't want to be judged by other people, whatever it might be. And so we tend to avoid as much discomfort as we possibly can. And when we avoid discomfort, what we do is we usually go towards immediate gratification. Oh, I want to eat right now. Oh, I want to scroll right now. Oh, I want to watch TV right now. Those are immediate gratifications, and they give you a little bit of dopamine, a little bit of a dopamine hit every single time. But when you go for immediate gratification, it almost always turns into bad results long term. And you've heard me say, if you listen to this podcast before, your life is either easy now and hard later, or hard now and easy later. We have many choices throughout the day. And we need to become aware of when these choices present themselves. And we need to consciously and intentionally make the right choices for ourselves. And take the path of more resistance, which is usually harder now, going to make us uncomfortable now, to make our life better in the long run. It is natural for a human to take the path of least resistance. It is. Once again, least resistance, not hard now. That means self-preservation. I'm trying to protect my energy. I'm trying to not do the hard thing because I don't want to get out of my comfort zone because I don't know what's outside of my comfort zone. And if you decide to do what's easy now, it will 100% make your life harder down the road. If you decide to do what's hard now, it will make your life easier down the road. It's just the way it goes. Like Jim Rohn has a great quote around this. He says, we all must suffer one of two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The pain of regret is way worse than the pain of discipline. I promise you that. One of them gives you immediate comfort. That's hey, I'm choosing the easy way. That's immediate comfort. The other, although it's challenging for you initially, it usually creates a way better life, longer lasting rewards, whatever it might be, right? Like deciding to go to the gym right now. It's uncomfortable. It hurts. You're going to be sweating. It's going to be harder than sitting on the couch. But long term, if you do it over and over and over again, your life will be better. We all know that. So it's about seeing when we get to this moment in our life where we have a choice and making sure that we start making the right decisions. If we choose the easier route, it's pretty much always temporary relief and instant gratification, but the path often leads us to way more significant challenges in the future, whether that's with our relationships, deciding not to talk about the hard things. Your relationship's going to be harder. Your health and your fitness, when you decide not to take the hard route, it makes your life harder later on down the road. In your business, in your money, in everything, single aspect of it. If you decide to take the easy route now, it will be much harder later on down the road. If you decide to, like, simple example, right? You decide to binge watch a series instead of studying for an exam. That's an immediate pleasure. Makes you feel better now. But it could result in a lot more stress. It could result in poor grades. It could be, academic problems later on. You don't get as good of a job. Maybe you don't graduate. You drop out. But if you decide, okay, I've got this choice in front of me. I'm going to decide not to watch TV. I'm going to decide to study. That can be hard right now. It's a lot of discomfort right now. I hated studying when I was in college. That's why I dropped out of college, right? But it will make the exam way easier. And it'll eventually lead to better academic performance, less stress, potentially better career opportunities later on down the road. So when you're met with the choice of instant gratification versus delayed gratification, you have to learn to become conscious in that moment. Not to be unconscious, but to become conscious and choose the hard now. Choose the delayed gratification. Instant gratification is always easy. Delayed gratification is always hard. Instant will make your life harder down the road. Delayed will make your life easier down the road. Your future is just a series of choices that are placed in front of you, decisions that you make either consciously or unconsciously in the present moment, and actions that you have to take, which will lead to some sort of future. But you have to decide the harder route that will create the life that you want, that lines up with the future you're trying to create. And if you do that, I promise you this, your life will be way better in the future. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories. Tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. Also, if you love this podcast, you will 100% love this thing that I have called Mindset Mentor Plus that's coming out very soon. It is a way to fully integrate these podcast episodes into your life. So you're not just listening to them passively, but you're actively engaging in every single episode. And there's going to be worksheets that come with every single episode. There's going to be exclusive Q&A sessions. There's going to be journaling prompts. There's going to be all kinds of stuff. There's going to be a whole bunch of other bonuses. If you're interested in learning about it, go to mindsetwaitlist.com right now. The first people who sign up, the actual founding members, are going to get a discount. So if you want to be the first to learn about it, go to mindsetwaitlist.com. I'll send out an email to just the waitlist before I announce it on social media, before I announce it on the podcast, and you'll be able to see what the discount is. So if you're interested, we'd love to see you in there. We'd love to connect with you. With that, I'm going to leave the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to teach you how to stop self-sabotaging yourself so you don't feel like you're stuck, so you can get moving in the direction that you want to create the life that you want. Let's dive in. I've been coaching people now for 19 years. We all have goals. We all have dreams. We all have aspirations. We all want our life to be just a little bit better, a little bit more rich, a little bit more fun. You know, some people want to go and they want to get a new job. Some people want to start a business. Some people want to go and get healthier. Some people want to, pursue some creative passion. Like maybe they want to start painting more. They want to start playing more music or get into a band or learn pottery. But there's always something that we want to do and we want to get better. But why don't we actually do it? What I hear from most people is that they feel like they're spinning their wheels. They feel like they're stuck. It's hard for them to get unstuck. And they know what they need to do. They know what they want to do. They have a pretty good idea what has to happen in order for that to happen, but they're just not doing it. They want to take action some sort of way, but they're not doing it. Or they do it for a little while and then they stop. And we all want to take action some sort of way, but it tends to be that we self-sabotage ourselves. And when you feel like you're self-sabotaging, when you feel like you're stuck, it can be really frustrating. And then we're like, I don't know what to do. Why can't we just take action and do what we want to do when we know what we need to do? What do I need to do to get the life that I want? It's so simple, but why don't we do it? And so that's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to dive into why we don't take the actions that we need to in order to create the life that we want. And then we're going to talk about how to actually do it. And I want you to understand this. There's a big disconnect in your mind between desire and action. And so you can consciously want to go and become a multimillionaire or become famous or, build the life that you want or build a business. You can consciously want it. And we all consciously want something. But why are we not doing what we need to do to get that life? Because at the core of this disconnect, there is, on one side, it is what we want, and on the other side is what we actually do. And, it seems very simple on the surface, right? It's like, you really want something, you should just be able to go for it. But in reality, in your head, it's not that straightforward. Because we as humans, we think. And that's what gets us in all the trouble. What do? We think about the future. And most of your cognitive processing happens behind the scenes in your subconscious. So you have your conscious mind, which wants to build the business and wants to be happy and wants to be successful and wants all of these great things and wants to be, having more fun and travel more. Your conscious mind wants that. And that's about 5% of what your brain does. Then there's your subconscious mind, subconscious, which means under the conscious mind, which is about 95% of your cognitive processing, which is stuck in a couple different things that we're going to cover today. Your identity, what you think of yourself, who you think that you are, what you're thinking about when you think about your future, all of that stuff. And so your conscious mind wants it. Your subconscious mind is the thing that's holding you back. And so the first thing you need to understand is your brain's orientation towards the future. Our brains are wired to constantly imagine the future. And this is an incredibly useful trait for survival. It's allowed humans to be able to plan, to anticipate, to avoid dangers, to kind of look into the future and think, what are potential dangers that could come around the other side of this turn? It's ultimately the reason why our species survived, and also the reason why our species survived. But your greatest strength is often your greatest weakness. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Yeah, we can think into the future to avoid potential pitfalls and all of that, but we can also think into the future of what it is that we want, and then we start thinking about all the pitfalls of that, and we don't take action towards it. And so, when you think about the average person, what do you think the average person is thinking about in the back of their heads? Are they thinking about where they're going? Are they thinking about where their goals? Are they thinking about how amazing today is going to be? No. A brain left to its own to do what it wants to do will almost always go negative because your brain is a protection mechanism. That's why it kept our species alive. It is protecting you at all points in time. In order to protect you, it must keep you in its comfort zone. But if you want to create a life you've never had, you're going to have to get out of that comfort zone. So, we think about, instead of thinking about the life that we want and what we're creating and how amazing today's going to be, we think about all the things that we don't want. We think about what could go wrong, and then your brain is always on defense mode. It's never on offense. It's very rarely on offense, I'll put it that way, but it's mostly on defense almost all of the time. You're probably always focused on what it is that you don't want. Your brain is imagining a future that you're trying to avoid. And so basically, if you look at this whole thing, the future in your mind is filled with all of these potential pitfalls and negative outcomes. And if your future is filled with all of these negative outcomes and what your brain's thinking into, why would you ever take action towards that future? So for instance, let me give you an example so to kind of give you more context, right? If you're thinking about starting a new business, your brain, your conscious mind might be like, oh my gosh, it's going to be fun. I'm going to do something I enjoy. I'm going to be able to work for myself. I'm going to be able to make unlimited amount of money. But that's your conscious mind. And then the other 95% of your mind is constantly filled with thoughts like, well, what if I fail? What if this doesn't work out? What if I lose all of my money? What if I work, What if I work my ass off for a year and I get nothing from it? And then after working my ass off for an entire year, I'm not only not where I want to be, I'm behind where I am right now. So it might just be easier just to stay at my current job where I know I make $60,000 a year versus go off and do my own thing. And I could possibly be having to pull money out of my bank account. Oh my gosh, what if I lose my house? What if my wife leaves me because of the fact that I'm such a loser? And so your brain is constantly constructing a future that is filled with danger and loss. Why would you ever take action towards a future that has danger and loss in it? Hey, real quick, I want to introduce you to something called Mindset Mentor Plus. If you love this podcast, you will absolutely love what I'm about to talk about. I designed Mindset Mentor Plus to help you actively integrate every one of these episodes into your life. And here's how it works. With every episode of this podcast that comes out, Mindset Mentor Plus subscribers get more. You're going to get multiple page, detailed, printable worksheets, effectively a mini masterclass that's way more in depth than just this podcast. They also come with journaling questions, challenges, assignments, and so much more, so that you're not just listening to these podcasts passively, but you're actively integrating them into your life. That way you improve much faster. I also do monthly Q&A sessions in there and much, much more. If you want to learn more about it, go to mindsetmentor.com or click the link that's down in the description. You want to avoid it. And that's why you don't take action, is because behind the scenes in your subconscious, your brain's thinking, danger, danger, danger. Rob, don't take any action. It's better to stay on Instagram. It's better to watch TV. Don't get off of the couch. Your brain is 10 steps ahead of you. It's already planned your demise. So your conscious mind just goes, yeah, we shouldn't do this. And so why would you want to move towards a future that seems like it's so full of negativity, of risk, of your demise? Like this thinking causes really internal resistance, like a lot of internal resistance towards taking action. And so you've got to understand this. I've said this before on the podcast, but you have to understand your mind is so incredibly rich and complex and creative that you can sit wherever you currently are right now and you can imagine a future. And you can feel the feelings of that future right now without your body ever leaving. And so you can imagine a future that is rich, that is full of love and happiness, and traveling to take your children to go see the Colosseum in Rome and what that would feel like to take your family there and to buy your mom a new car and move into a new house. And you can feel the feelings inside of your body of accomplishing those things. But most of the time, we're not feeling those feelings and thinking about that. What are we thinking about? We're thinking about, what if my business fails? What if I can't pay my bills? What if I can't do that? And so you're going to feel the feelings in this moment where you're currently sitting as if your business has already failed. Well, that feels like shit, doesn't it? Why would you ever want to take action when you feel like that? And so you have to understand that your brain is so amazing that it can project itself into the future. And because of the fact that it's projecting itself into the future, you're feeling the feelings of that future as if it's actually happening right now. Problem is, most people think about what they don't want all day. And so that's why they feel like shit all day versus waking up and focusing on what it is that you do want. And so if you can understand what your brain is imagining in the future, you can start to change it. So that's the first reason why you're not taking action to wherever it is you want to go. The second reason why is because of your identity. Another really big barrier to action is this misalignment between your current identity and the actions that you need to take to hit your goals. So to get somewhere that you've never been, you're going to have to do something that you've never done. You understand that, right? In order to get somewhere you've never been, you're going to have to do some things that you've never done. And a lot of times this means that you need to step out of your comfort zone and do things that don't align with your current self-image. They, in fact, cannot align with your current self-image because you've never done them before. And for most people, that causes really big cognitive dissonance, which is, I'm doing something that doesn't line up with who I am. Well, that doesn't make me feel comfortable. It makes people feel really weird inside. And so the most important part of the behavior, aka everything that you do and what it is that you do in your life, is who you think you are, because who you think you are is going to dictate what it is that you do. So even if you intellectually understand that different actions need to happen in order to create the life that you want, you might still avoid them because they don't align with what you think you are. It doesn't align with your current identity. And so this misalignment creates this psychological tension within you. On one hand, you have all of the goals you want to achieve, a successful business, being rich, traveling the world, whatever it is that you want. That's on one hand, but on the other hand, all of the actions that are required in order to achieve them, they don't line up with your identity. They feel unnatural and they feel uncomfortable. And this tension between what you want and what you need to do versus who you think you are, this tension can be really paralyzing, which then leads you, because of the fact that it's paralyzing, it leads you to doing nothing, which makes you feel stuck. And it's that feeling of, I'm self-sabotaging, which is, I know what I need to do. Why can't I get myself to do it? And so when people feel uncomfortable, what they tend to do is they tend to freeze. And so what you need to do is you need to have your identity of who you think you are. It's going to have to change in some way. You're going to have to let it flow. And what I mean by that is, like, a lot of times we think like, who I am is who I am. And I am this person. And this is my personality. And this is my identity. But the person that you are today is not who you have to be tomorrow. You can decide to be somebody else. You know, I've said this quote many times in this podcast. One of my favorite quotes is Alan Watts says, you're under no obligation to be who you were 15 minutes ago. Identity flows. It changes. It's not like a rock. It's like water. Identity changes. It flows. You're not the same person that you were 15 years ago. So if that's the case, that means that your identity is not a thing that's set in stone. It's something that changes and moves and shifts. So if you understand this flexibility, the key is to break free from these limitations of your current self-image of yourself. And one of the things that you can do is you can start to reframe who you actually think you are. And reframing basically involves changing the way that you think about yourself and your abilities. So instead of seeing yourself as someone who is like shy, Start to test that a little bit. Oh, I'm shy. I don't like to go out. I don't like to talk to people. And you don't have to say, hey, I'm outgoing, which is what most people say. Like, oh, if you're shy, just say you're outgoing. Your BS meter is going to go off and be like, well, I've never been outgoing before, so I must be shy. So instead of like saying the exact opposite, well, if you're naturally shy, why don't you just ask yourself, what if I was just a little bit more outgoing? Like you don't have to jump all the way outside of your comfort zone. Just take a little step out. See a different perspective. What if I was just a little bit more outgoing? Instead of viewing yourself as someone who's like very, very afraid and risk adverse, just ask yourself the question, like, instead of saying, oh, well, I'm brave and I'm courageous. That's stupid. Don't do that. Say, what if I was someone who was comfortable with taking calculated risks? What if I could step in and be in? And you just step a little bit out of that comfort zone of yours. Just small shifts in your perspective. Because if you can see a little bit different of a perspective, you start to actually see yourself as a different person, which is ultimately what you need to do to change your identity. And this little tiny shift in self-perception can change your behavior. Because then if your identity changes, then you can realize it's not necessarily set in stone. And if it's not set in stone, that means it could change. And if it can change, why can't I change it to who I want to be? Okay, if it's not set in stone, it can change. And if it can change, why don't I set it to who I want to be? Your identity is it's like who people think that they are. And the more I work with people on this, the more I love talking about this. Who you think you are is basically just a house of cards. You think that it's this fortress. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is how I've always been. But then you start talking to people just a little bit, like you just realize it's like a house of cards just waiting for a nice little flick and the whole thing comes falling down. And then you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not who I thought I was at all. Which means if I'm not who I thought I was, then why don't I just build myself up into who I want to be? And so one of the ways that you can really start to help yourself kind of get free of this is to start journaling through these things more. If you listen to this podcast a lot, I recommend journaling all of the time. And just journal your current identity and start asking yourself questions about yourself. So ask yourself questions as if you were just, really curious. You're meeting somebody new and you're just sitting down, you're interviewing them and asking them questions. And just say like, how do I see myself right now? Like, what do I think about myself? What are the beliefs that I hold about my abilities? What are the beliefs that I hold about my limitations? What are some of the fears that I have? What are some of the self-limiting beliefs? What actions do I avoid because they don't align with my current self-image? Oh, well, you know what? I've always told myself I'm lazy, so therefore I'm not taking the action I need to. I'm not a hard worker. And just be honest with yourself. Just be very curious. And try to just uncover if there's any underlying beliefs or fears that are behind everything that are shaping your behavior. And this process can really help you identify some of the specific aspects of your identity that are holding you back. And then if you've journaled who you are and some of your fears and some of your self-limiting beliefs, journal who you want to be. Hey, what would it look like if I was more confident? What would I need to do in order to be more successful? What would it look like if I wasn't somebody that was so afraid of being in a committed relationship? And just start asking yourself these questions. What would it look like? And you don't have to step into that person. What you're doing is you're just being curious. You're just being creative. You're just testing the boundaries just to see what else you would need to do. And then what you want to do is after you become clear on who you want to be, is to start visualizing that future self. Because what happens is, if we wake up in the morning and we unconsciously are thinking about the future that we don't want, then we are unconsciously making ourselves feel the feelings of that future that we don't want based off of what we said a little while ago, which means we're unconsciously holding ourselves stuck in place and not doing what we need to do to create the life that we want. So if we're waking up and unconsciously visualizing the future that we want, what if we woke up in the morning and we decided to visualize the future that we want and visualize the future self? What would it look like if I was extremely successful? What would it look like if I was very outgoing? What would it look like if I was confident? And you sit there and you visualize that so that you can feel the feelings of, what would it look like if I did build this business? And then a year from now, it's so successful, I'm able to take my family to Italy. Let me visualize what it would look like to see my wife and my 2 kids and be able to see them, going on a tour through the Colosseum. and you visualize that future and make it as rich as you possibly can and feel those feelings of the future that you want versus feeling the feelings of the future that you don't want. And you visualize this every single day, and you journal and you visualize, and you journal and you visualize. And what you're doing is if I'm being honest with you, you're essentially brainwashing yourself to who you want to be. If you're 40 years old right now, you have unconsciously brainwashed yourself into who you are right now. Well, why don't you, for the rest of the hopefully 40, 50, 60 years of your life, start to brainwash yourself for who you want to be? Because you've brainwashed yourself to believe and be who you are right now. Why don't you brainwash yourself into being who you want to be? And journal through it and plan it and feel the feelings of what that future would feel like. So therefore, you're not feeling like you have to push yourself to that future, but you're feeling pulled towards your future because your future just feels so exciting to you. And essentially, that is how you get past your self-sabotage. That's how you change your identity. And that's how you take the actions that you need to create the life that you want. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please do me a favor, share it on your Instagram stories, tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. The only way this podcast grows is from you guys sharing it. And so if you've ever gotten any value, please do me a favor and share it so that more people can find this, so that I can impact more people's lives. And hopefully we can just make the world a better place. Also, if you love this podcast, you'll definitely love something I have called Mindset Mentor Plus. It is the next level past Mindset Mentor. So for every single episode of Mindset Mentor that comes out, Mindset Mentor Plus subscribers get a whole lot more. There's multiple page detailed worksheets going even deeper into every single episode that we have of this podcast. There's worksheets, there's assignments, there's journaling questions. There's literally assignments and actions that you should take from every single episode. And we do monthly Q&A sessions in there and a few more other bonuses. So if you want to learn more about it, go to mindsetmentor.com. Once again, mindsetmentor.com. It is less than $1 a day. And if you're interested, go to that website. And with that, I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm holding it. This is my book. It is called Level Up: How to Get Focused, Stop Procrastinating, and Upgrade Your Life. And in this short bonus episode, I'm going to talk to you about the book and how if you pre-order it now, you'll automatically get a free mini course from me, and you'll get entered into winning over $25,000 in cash and prizes for pre-ordering it as well. This book took me 3 years to write, 16 rounds of edits, late nights, early mornings, writing it. I rewrote it multiple times, and it's all my knowledge from 17 years of coaching people since 2006, my life experience over the past 37 years of being alive, and everything that I could put into it to try to help you improve your life. I wrote this book to basically be a one-stop shop, the masterclass on how to master your mind so that you can stop holding yourself back and actually create action to create the life that you want. There's 3 parts of this book. The first part, and what I teach you, is why you don't take action. Because before I can teach you how to take action to create the life that you want, you must understand yourself, your mind, and why you don't take action when you know what you probably should do. So you can get past that. The second part of the book, the second section, is where I teach you how to take action so you can actually create the life that you want. How to get efficient, how to get better at time management, how to stop procrastinating on the life that you want, and how to actually hit your goals. And in the third section, I teach you how to turn all of those actions that you're now getting better at and make them habits, something that you do every single day, and how to actually fall in love with the process. Yes, how to fall in love with the process of taking the action that you have been resisting to build the life that you want. This book comes out, the actual published date is October 3rd. And you can wait to buy it till then if you want to, or you can buy it on pre-sale. And when you buy it on pre-sale, you will automatically get a free mini course from me called the Get Off Your Ass Masterclass. Yes, that is where I will teach you how to stop procrastinating, how to take action, and how to actually get the ball rolling in your life. And when you actually get this as well, besides getting the free mini course, you'll go into a drawing. Every single person will go into a drawing that pre-orders this book for $25,000 in cash and prizes. So let me tell you why it's so important for me and for this book, and hopefully for the world, that you actually pre-order this book instead of waiting. Number 1, you'll get the book to your doorstep the day that the book comes out. And number 2, all of the pre-sale orders count for the first week of sales. That helps this book hit all of the bestseller lists. And when you get on a bestseller list, it helps the book be discovered by people who don't know who I am, people who don't listen to this podcast, and hopefully allows me to help those people change their life and impact their lives as well. So if you've ever gotten any value from any of the 13 or 1,400 podcast episodes that I've done over the past 8 years, 3 to 4 times a week, or if you've ever gotten value from over 7,000 Instagram posts that I've put up, please do me a favor. Do this right now. Go to robdial.com/book, ROBDIAL.com/book right now. I have all of the links to purchase this book for pre-sale available on that website. And then it will actually take you step by step through the exact process that you need to go through after purchasing the pre-sale book to get off your asset masterclass absolutely free, which is where I'll teach you how to stop procrastinating, how to get focused, and how to take meaningful action. And then you'll be entered into the drawing, and this is how you enter into the drawings on that website, where I'll be giving out, once again, over $25,000 in cash and prizes only to people who pre-sale it. And then once the book launches on October 3rd, all of that will disappear. The cash and prizes, you won't be able to be entered into it, and you also won't be able to get the free masterclass as well. So once again, if you want this book, please right now go to robdial.com/book, ROBDIAL.com/book. Pre-order it now. I hope that it changes your life. I've put everything that I possibly can, blood, sweat, and tears, and so much into editing to try to make this the best book that I possibly can. So if you would do that for me, once again, I'll put it down below in the description, everything, robdial.com/book. Thank you. Love you. See you on the next podcast episode. Welcome, everybody, to the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial. If you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast episode. And today's a special day. I'm joined by my good friend, Lewis Howes here, who has an incredible new book that's out. And it's called The Greatness Mindset, which works perfectly for what we do here, everybody. And so the first thing I want to dive into with you, Lewis, is I literally just finished my book last week. And it is, let's put it the real way. It's a bitch to write a book, right? Like it's a lot, especially when you have a business. I have a business. You have a podcast. I have a podcast. To put a book in there as well is a big thing. And this is your third book. So the first one was The School of Greatness. The second one was The Mask of Masculinity. And this one, The Greatness Mindset. Why now? Like what's with things that are going on in your life? Why is now this book is the thing that needed to come out of you?
Man, it's the thing I wish I had 10, 20, 30 years ago when I was struggling and stuck at different seasons and stages of my life, whether it be in relationship, pain and breakups, or struggling in a business partnerships. I wish I had a clear path with personal examples, scientific studies, and research backing exactly what to do when you feel stuck, when you feel like unsure, uncertain, like you're doubting yourself, you're not 100% clear on the next step. And so for me, I wanted to create the book that I need and have needed at different times when I was experiencing the most pain.
Yeah.
My good friend Rory Vaden says you're perfectly positioned to help the person you once were. And so my goal was, from all the different challenges and pain and adversity that I was facing in different areas, and the lessons I was learning from overcoming them and now being in a peaceful place, I want to give people the same type of prescription that could support them. And as you know, a lot of people are struggling out there dealing with just overwhelm, anxiety, stress, depression, and in my opinion, a lot of self-doubt. All those things cause us to doubt ourselves. And I believe self-doubt's the killer of dreams. It's the thing that holds us back from having clarity and flow. And in order to create something beautiful or great, I believe you've got to be willing to get into flow more frequently. And I think you might have it at periods of time, but if you can have it more abundantly, this flow energy, this peaceful state inside of you, then I think you can create from a stage of manifesting and alchemizing any idea you want into the world.
Yeah, there's one thing I think I love those in the book when you bring up self-doubt. I think it's called the self-doubt diagram that's inside the book. Take me through that, because here's the thing. We both work a lot with business owners, and the main thing that holds a business owner back is the business owner's own mindset and their self-doubt. But even if you're not a business owner, we all have tons of self-doubts that pop up every single day. And so when you say that self-doubt's one of the biggest things that holds people back, What's kind of the flow that you take people through of recognizing their self-doubt and then working through it as well?
Man, well, there's 3 fears that cause us to doubt ourselves. And when I've gone around and spoken in big audiences, I'll have people raise their hand just to get an idea. The fear of failure, the fear of success, and the fear of judgment, essentially other people's opinions of you, whether it be to your face or behind your back. And I always wanted to be successful. And as an athlete, I learned from great coaches growing up that in order to succeed, you must fail. You must go through making mistakes. You must go through losing games so you can learn what worked, what didn't work, and how to improve. And so dropping a ball or missing a shot was never the end of the world. I didn't like it. I never wanted to drop a ball or miss a shot, but it wasn't like the end of the world. It was always like, okay, this is information. This is feedback. It's telling me what's not working and how I can just adjust to make it work better the next time, to set myself up for success. So failure was something, again, I didn't enjoy, but I embraced taking action knowing that I would fail. And as you know, Rob, you coach a lot of people, a lot of 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs are part of your program. You know that they all have these big ideas. I want to write a book. I want to launch a podcast. I want to do a YouTube show. I want to put myself out there on social media. I want to start a new business or a side hustle or whatever it might be that they're interested in. And they'll be thinking about it for a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, sometimes years. People will have this, I've been wanting to write a book for years, but I'm just afraid to fail. You hear this conversation that people have this idea in their mind, this conversation that they're talking about, but they're not willing to act because there's one fear that's holding them back, that fear of failure. Again, for guys like me and you know, growing up playing sports, I think we weren't afraid to at least take action and have our face smashed in the ground because we're like, oh, we'll just get back up and it's going to hurt. But we know that's part of the process of accomplishing goals or achieving success. So for me, fear of failure wasn't the thing, but it is for most people. Their fear of failure is a big thing that holds them back and causes them to doubt themselves. The second one, the fear of success, which I didn't really understand as well because I had these dreams and goals to be successful that I was like, this is what I'm going after. It's what I want. But I don't know if you experienced this, Rob. When I started to go beyond my high school into college dreams, go beyond my college sports dreams into professional football, and then playing USA handball with the USA team, with team handball, and then go on and launch my own business and start to make more money than peers that I knew, our friends that I grew up with, I started to realize that people in my friend circle or communities weren't actually as supportive as I thought they would be. Some of them were. They were there for me the whole way. But others started to, not like that. Or they started to ask me for money or started to ask me for things in ways that I didn't feel like were authentic. So there is this documentary called The Weight of Gold, which is about Olympic gold medalists who within 6 months or a year after they win the gold medal, go through extreme depression. Some of them commit suicide because of the pressure of success. And so this is a big fear and concern for a lot of people. What if my friends and family don't accept me? What if they want more from me than I'm capable of giving? What if I feel like I'm going to get taken advantage of? What if I succeed and now I have this pressure and I can't keep up the success? It took so much to get here. What happens if I fail after that? So this kind of fear of the things tied around success holds a lot of people back as well. If you ask people, are any of you afraid of success? Usually half the room raises their hand. For me, I learned that in the process, and I didn't like the things I was dealing with from people asking for things or people reaching out after 10 years now that they see me accomplishing stuff and being like, are they really a friend or are they just asking for something? So you've got to learn how to manage people in a different way when you succeed. But I was still driven by results and my goals. So that wasn't a fear of taking action, where it's a fear to take action for a lot of people. The third fear, the third cause of self-doubt was my biggest kryptonite, which was the fear of judgment. I was so worried and concerned about what other people thought about me to my face or behind my back for many, many, many years. And it caused me to have, I would still take action. I'd still be willing to fail and hope to succeed, but I was always concerned what people were saying. I always wanted to please people. And it took a lot of energy away from my flow and my peace because I was concerned about a negative comment online, a bad review on a book, someone saying something nasty on social media. And that would, all my attention would go to that as opposed to the millions of people saying positive things. And so it was that fear of judgment which held me back. And at the core of each one of these fears, failure, success, or judgment, is a belief that we all have in one way, shape, or form. And you talk about this a lot on your podcast, which I love. And the belief is I am not enough. At the center, the root of each one of these fears is I'm not enough. If I fail, I'm not going to be enough, or I'm not good enough, talented enough, smart enough, wealthy enough, beautiful enough, whatever it is. Succeed, I'll never feel enough. And if people judging me, it's because I'm not enough.
I want to dive into this because it's funny because the fear of failure doesn't scare me. The fear of success doesn't scare me. Fear of judgment used to scare me. So I was in the same boat as you. But it's interesting because you talk about the fear of failure, which I see as if I were to guess, probably the one that holds people back the most. But it's so funny because what you said is so true. Like, I played basketball, you played football. And it was like, do you know how many times we screwed up over and over and over? And I truly believe when I have children, they have to play some sport because it ingrains in you just to be okay. Like when someone joins my program, literally we call the first month, fuck it up and figure it out. Because it's like, just be okay messing everything up that you can mess up. The fear of success, what's interesting is I haven't had people ask me for money, but the one thing that I have had is a lot of people ask for a lot of time. And that's really hard. I don't know if you've noticed that where it's just like people want time. They want. I literally got a text message this morning. Hey, I'm thinking about starting a business. Can you go do lunch this week? And I'm like, dude, I can't do lunch for the next month. Like, so there's that aspect of it. But as far as the judgment side, I definitely used to have that before I got into sales. And I was afraid of what people would think about me all the time. And I was afraid if they would like me. And I think it comes back to a tribal feeling of like, we can't get kicked out of the tribe. If we're kicked out of the tribe, we're going to die in some sort of way. And so you talk about the part of it is creating this mission, this meaningful mission for your life. And I love it because it comes down to the simple fact of, is what I'm doing right now getting me closer to or further from my goals? And I always think that all of the time. And with you, you probably think that all the time as well, because now that you have grown in popularity, you also have to say like, okay, there's this opportunity that's here, but is this lining up with my meaningful mission that I'm trying to actually build in my life? And so with people who are out there where they're like, yeah, I'm either afraid of fear or success or judgment or shit, I'm afraid of all three of them. How do I develop a meaningful mission in my life to actually decide if the fear of failure, success, and judgment matter at all? If this is my life path and this is what it is that I'm passionate about doing, this is what I'm going to do. How do you develop a meaningful mission around your life?
Well, two things. First, you got to learn to accept and love yourself for where you're at and all the things that you're ashamed of from your past. Because if you're still living in shame, guilt, insecurity, or not forgiving yourself for these things, then there's going to be something inside of you that says, I'm not enough, that says, I messed up, or I'm still not good enough, or I can't believe I made this mistake. You're still going to be a self-critic as opposed to a positive self-coach. And so we've got to learn to be able to instill belief in ourselves when we normally doubt ourselves. That's one thing. So we've got to be constantly on a healing journey of, okay, I'm not proud of these things I did, or I'm not proud of this, or I'm shameful about this thing. And it doesn't mean you have to share it with the world, but you've got to be willing to mend it within you in whatever process that works for you. And I've done many different processes over the last 10 years that have supported my healing journey. That's, I believe, is key because as you know, Rob, there's a difference between pursuing goals and dreams. And I'm sure at some point in your life, and a lot of people watching and listening, they've accomplished something and still didn't feel like they were good enough. For me, I've accomplished a lot of sports goals and business goals. And literally 20 minutes afterwards, I was like beating myself up. Oh, I could have done more. I should have done it faster. Why didn't I do it in a different way? What's wrong with me? It was like going back to the self-critic as opposed to actually celebrating everything I've done to get me to this moment in my life. So having a process of the healing journey and awareness of how to make meaning and mend those memories is key. It's something I cover in the book on how to do that. But then developing the meaningful mission, I think people have to understand that there's a difference between accomplishing goals and dreams and being of service. And just saying I want to be successful is selfish thinking. It's about, these are my goals, these are my dreams, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's exciting. That's how I've lived a lot of my life. But I never felt like they were good enough when I would accomplish them. So I just wanted to shift the paradigm. Instead of wanting to accomplish my goals and dreams, a meaningful mission is more about greatness. Goals and dreams by itself is about success. But if you want to be great, you've got to learn about service. And a meaningful mission includes the impact of people around you. This doesn't need to be changing the world in some grand thing, but it includes your goals and dreams with serving other people in your community, your family, your friends, or your platform around you, and making it a win-win experience where I don't win unless others win around me. And I think that's the difference between success and greatness. Success is more selfish. Greatness is more service mindset. And you develop that service mindset in the process of scripting, designing, and creating a meaningful mission. And I would encourage everyone listening and watching to ask yourself if you can write down in one sentence right now what your meaningful mission is in life. It could be life or business or career. I'm very clear on mine. It's to serve and impact 100 million lives weekly to help them improve the quality of their life. That's it. And we do that through different mechanisms, but it's clear on what my meaningful mission is. It's to serve and impact 100 million lives weekly to help them improve the quality of their life. It's measurable, it's clear, it's something that is, for me, exciting. It gets me excited every day to wake up because it's something I'm reaching for, and I have to become someone different every day to get there. And I have to evolve and grow and transform consistently to go beyond my capacity. And so for me, it's clear, it's definable, and it includes other people as well. It's not just, I want to make $1 million so I can buy my dream home. Sure, that can be a result, part of the process in the meaningful mission. Yes, I can have personal goals that I want to accomplish along the way, accolades, all that stuff, follower growth, it's all good. Money in the bank, great. But I think if you're only saying, here are my top 3 goals for the year, and they're focused on me, I feel like we're missing a big opportunity to create greatness over success.
I love that you put greatness on one side and success on the other side, because we both have mutual friends that are extremely successful, and you get to a point where you're like, well, I kind of already made money. Like, what the hell do I do now? Like, it's not fun. It doesn't drive you anymore. Like I always say, like the first 32 years of my life, it was like, how can I make $1 million? How can I be successful? And then when you get to a point, whatever someone's mountain is that they want to climb, you're like, well, what the hell do I do now? Like, what is there to do? And at that point is usually when people do expand themselves to think, all right, well, let me think about people outside of me. And it's funny because for you and me, it's like someone might be listening and be like, well, Lewis has a podcast and he's impacting people, and Rob has a podcast and he's impacting people. But, I sell widgets at my company. So how the hell do I get a meaningful mission out of it and serve others? And we have 2 good friends, mutual friends that are come pop first thing into my mind. And we have Joel Marion and Josh Bozzoni, who both of them had a supplement.
I was just thinking of them as you were saying.
Were you thinking of them? So it's like they have a supplement company.
I was just thinking of that.
They had a supplement company, right? They sold it for a few $100 million. But you can look at it and say, okay, they were selling supplements. Sure, maybe they're helping people in some way. But what happened was then they decided we're going to try to be more service, like do service for others. And so they're like, we're going to do Make-A-Wish. And so with a percentage of how much money comes in, we're going to do Make-A-Wish Foundation. Then they're like, hey, what we could do? We could actually add it at the checkout where people can donate and add it to their bill. And then we could just donate that on top of it. And they said that they had more sales, they had more success. And instead of being like, all right, well, I'm worth $50 million now, I got to try to be worth 10 million more. It was like, hey, how can we get more people to donate to Make-A-Wish? How can we bring in more revenue so that we can donate even more to Make-A-Wish Foundation? And so I love that. I love that we're both thinking of the same people too, that they're a good example of somebody who they're in a different company and they're selling a product, but they were able to take their company and their product and turn it into being service-based as well.
I think anytime you create meaning beyond your own success, the business can do a lot better in the long run too. Another example, my friend Tim Sykes, he's been doing for a long time, penny stock trading himself. And he's made millions just trading himself, and then he teaches other people how to do it. And for, 10 years, he just kept making more and more money, but he wasn't fully fulfilled until about, 5 years ago, where he started to get involved in charity. I took him on a charity trip to Guatemala to build a school for a company or an organization called Pencil to Promise. He was so moved by how his, a little bit of money for him could change hundreds of kids' lives who had no school, who had no building and no classroom in schooling, that now I think he's built like hundreds of schools around the world. He created his own charity, Karmagawa, that he is now just like, all my profits of my personal training go into this. We give a percentage to every sale towards service, towards the mission. And he's like, I'm more fueled to create because I know it's going to places that matter as well. So he wins and other people win. There is a meaningful mission behind it, more than just, I'm going to get $3 million this year, or $5 million in sales, or $10 million in sales. Okay, but then what? You bought the home, you bought the car, like you said, then people say, well, now what? And I think start with the now what at the beginning when you're launching something new, so you don't have to get to that place, well, now what? And so I think when you develop and craft a meaningful mission from the beginning, that is powerful. And it doesn't mean everything you're going to be working on in your career or your business you're going to love. You might be in a position where you're like, well, I can't just scrap this whole business that I don't care about. But there's a process I talk about in The Greatest Mindset, which is figuring out the 3 Ps for yourself: the passion, your power, and the problem you want to solve. And when you can figure out your talents and unique interests that you could align to and that excite you, either in a business you're already working on or something else you're working on, you can be a part of a team that excites you, where you use and develop your talents and interests. That's step one. When you can figure out what your power is, this is really like your unique assets that you could develop, and also where you fall short on your power. So what your greatest fears are, go all in on those fears to overcome them so they become powerful assets for you. Then you can use those 2 things to figure out, what's the problem I want to solve? What's the thing I want to support? How do I want to be of service? And when you can marry all 3 of them with your meaningful mission and get clear on that, it's going to be powerful. Now, listen, when I was starting out, my meaningful mission was, how do I make enough money to get off my sister's couch?
Yeah.
It was not, I couldn't think beyond getting out of scarcity. So it was, but it also doesn't mean that I can't be kind, generous, focused on being curious with other people, which I was. I asked a lot of questions when I was on my sister's couch. I showed up with joy, positive energy. I was generating energy around me for the people that I was close to. I wasn't being a taker energetically. I wasn't being a gimme type of person. I was still showing up and saying, how can I serve and add value? And I think when you create value at every season and every stage, you're able to elevate that stage of where you're trying to get to. So every season, you can create a new meaningful mission. And once you accomplish it, you can say, do I still want to go on this path? Or is there a reflection time? As an athlete, we always have a postseason where you get to say, do I want to play this sport next year? Do I want to go back into training camp again? Do I want to go back into a full season? I remember my junior year of high school going into senior year. I played baseball my whole life. And after junior year, I broke my wrist. I was a pitcher. I played with a broken wrist, just snapping it for a whole season, just like whipping my wrist. And I remember being like, I'm in so much pain. I just don't love this sport anymore. And I don't see my talents and my resources getting me to the next stage as a professional athlete in baseball. So I was asking myself, my vision is to be a pro athlete. I don't see it happening in baseball. I'm feeling a lot of pain in my wrist right now. Let me take my talents elsewhere, as LeBron James says, and use it for something else.
Yeah.
And so there was a postseason, there's an off season where I got to reflect and say, what do I really want? And now I put it into a different mission. So we always get that time. I was telling you before we started recording, tomorrow's my 10-year anniversary of the School of Greatness podcast. And it's a good time to reflect on anniversaries or end of years or end of seasons of something, or at the end of a book. You just finished a book. you might reflect and say, man, do I want to write another book? Or maybe I wait a few years because this took a lot of my energy and time and focus from other things that could serve my mission as well. And so it's just, you want to give yourself the space and time to reflect and say, am I still using is it still something I'm passionate about? Am I still stepping into my authentic power? And am I solving a problem that excites me? And I think if you can answer those three questions, then you can get clear on your one sentence meaningful mission. And you can always adjust it and be flexible with it over time. As you evolve, it will evolve.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. There's one thing that you said, going back to what you said a few minutes ago when you were talking about your meaningful mission in impacting 100 million people weekly, is you said, in building that, who do I need to become in order to do it? And what I love about that is because you have an entire chapter on just your identity alone. And I always it's almost every single podcast episode, I say the Alan Watts phrase, which is you're under no obligation to be who you were 5 minutes ago. And it's the identity that we build for ourselves of who we think we are. And we build this entire life and we look at what we could do based off of who we think we are. And I really want to dive into the identity side of it and finding their identity, because a lot of people think they know who they are, and then they start working on themselves and they realize there's a whole lot of things that are happening in the subconscious that they have no clue that they've been doing, and ways they react and how they're triggered. And so when you look at this, I would think a certain piece of building it is not like, oh, can I do this based off of who I am now? But can I build myself, like you said, into being the type of person who can eventually create this meaningful mission? Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I wasn't capable 10 years ago of accomplishing that or being that. Right. There's been, and I set goals that are, I remember setting a goal when I was like 5 to be an All-American athlete because I watched, I watched Ohio State football with my dad, and he would talk about the All-American football players on the team. And I was like, what's that mean? He goes, they're the best in the country at their position. And I go, I want to be that one day. Yeah. And it took me 15 years, 17 years to accomplish the goal. And so I like to set goals that get me excited and put me into a future that I need to bring closer to me now of that way of being. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have seasonal goals of every sports season. Every year I have specific individual goals and want to win the championship or go to the playoffs or whatever it might be, or make the junior varsity and make the varsity. So there's different things I have towards a greater vision. And at the end of the day, it was always, I want to inspire people with my performance on the football field to dream bigger in their own lives. I always wanted to make plays that were awe-inspiring so that people could go home and be like, I want to go do something inspiring in my life as well. That's how I looked at it as an artist on the football field. And that's why I set that early on. One, because I was like, okay, in my first year of podcasting, I reached 750,000 downloads. You probably do that every day now, right, on your show. But it was a whole year of effort. And that was doing once a week, every week for a year. And it didn't even reach 1 million downloads. That was every day messaging people, say, check this out. I was all in, right? And I remember saying to myself after that, I was like, okay, we've almost reached 1 million downloads. Gosh, what would really excite me? Like 100 million downloads to even just get there seems like unbelievable. I don't know how long that'll take, but who would I need to become in order to make that happen? That's what excited me. What would I need to heal? What would I need to let go of? Who would I need to meet? What skills would I need to develop? What fears would I need to face? That's what really excited me over the last 10 years. And it has been a up and down healing emotional journey that has honestly, especially in the last couple of years, been so beautiful because it was a lot of stress. It was a lot of things I had to face that were uncomfortable. Had to have many uncomfortable conversations with myself, with other people, which takes courage to step into that. And it wasn't until the last couple of years where I finally felt like I had peace inside of me, where I was able to accept certain parts of me that I still was holding on to. I felt like I was healing a lot of parts, but there was still certain areas that I was resistant or not willing to face or didn't want to have those conversations around. And I think when you can lean into that, and realize that the things around you aren't going to change until you start to change the things inside of you. Man, that's when you can really create some good stuff though.
Yeah, man, it's funny because when was the last time you were in a football stadium? When and where? When was the last time you were in one?
Oh man, this is sad because I was just there Thanksgiving, right after Thanksgiving weekend. I went to the Ohio State Michigan game at Ohio Stadium, and it was sad because they lost really bad to Michigan. So that's a sore subject for me. But
well, here's the reason why I asked it, because so I was went to the Dallas Bucks game at the beginning of the year in Dallas. Went to the Dallas and Bucks game last week, which was terrible. So I was in Raymond James Stadium, and I was talking, and I was like, I wonder how many people are in Raymond James Stadium. And there's 70,000 people or 66,000, whatever it is, right? And have you ever sat, and the reason why I bring this up is because imagine 5-year-old Lewis, when you said you want to be an All-American, sitting back and realizing like what you could be now and what you have done. I sat back and I looked at it, and I was texting my wife at the time, and I was like, it's crazy that the podcast gets the podcast each week gets like 30 times more downloads than this entire thing. Like if you were to take 30 football stadiums and put them together, and that's basically what it would become. You know, if we do, what was the math? I think it was 9 of them a day is what it was actually. So it's even more than that. But what's crazy when you think about it though, is you had to start at literally 1. I had to start at literally 1. And we both, it's funny that you messaged so many people to get them to listen to it, because I did the exact same thing where I was like, you got to listen. Let me put this on Facebook. I'm going to put this everywhere I can without seeming as spammy as possible. And I think a lot of people will look at like, oh, well, I want to have a podcast that's done 100 million downloads and impacting so many people and stuff. But as you said, there's a lot of conversation with yourself like, do I want to do this shit anymore? Like, is it worth it? Like, this is hard. But when you have that meaningful mission, it's like, no, this is so important to me. I've got to keep going. And that's one of the pieces I think is super important with what you're talking about.
Yeah, because a lot of people want to do it because their friends are doing it, or they're seeing someone they're inspired by doing it, and they're thinking, oh, I want what they have. Right. It's really cool that they have this audience now, or they're making money now, or they're a bestseller now. I want to be a bestseller. And a lot of that comes down to is I don't feel enough, which again goes to one of the 3 core fears that cause us to doubt ourselves. I don't feel enough for where I'm at, so I want something that someone else has because I feel like it'll make me feel like I'm enough. I'm at that level, or I'm good enough. And that's a slippery slope, because the more success you get, if you still don't feel good enough, it's going to be miserable. You've seen a lot of people, go down depression, the more successful they get, go through drugs and alcohol and suicides because they can't handle it and they still don't love and accept themselves. That's what it comes down to. Yeah. And they look for other ways to mask the pain. So if we can get to a place of loving and accepting ourselves, which is not easy, it took me a long time to do, and we create based on an energy of service and wanting to make a difference and be generous and giving and loving and joyful, as opposed to, I need to do this to prove people wrong, which was the energy that I was using for a long time. I needed to do this to prove that I'm good enough. I needed to do this so that I'll get someone to like me. That is just the wrong energy. It can get you the results you're looking for, but it won't give you the love and acceptance you need from yourself. And I'll give you a good example of this. There was a guy in my high school, probably today. I was in 8th grade. He was a senior. So I was in middle school, like watching the seniors, play or whatever, basketball. He probably is today the freakiest athlete I've ever seen, like of all levels, all sports, professional. Like he was a mutant, like an unbelievable freak of nature. 45-inch vert, 360 jam, just standing under the basket, no effort, could do anything athletically. And everyone was like, you are the greatest. But for whatever reason, when he went into the games, he played average. He got shy. He got insecure. He couldn't show up fully. And I was like, dude, give me a fraction of your talent and look what I will do. I will dominate, right? And I was like, give me a few inches of your hops, like anything. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter if everyone in all of your friends, your family, your community believes in you. If you don't believe in you, you're always going to be falling short of what you're capable of. But the beautiful thing is that gives a lot of people hope is it doesn't matter if your friends, your family, your communities, or other communities doubt you. If you learn to accept and love yourself and you learn to believe in yourself, you can overcome any obstacle. And I think that's really inspiring and encouraging. But the other way doesn't work as well. If everyone's supporting you, but you don't learn the skill of accepting and loving yourself internally and create peace inside, no amount of talent will get you there. You've seen so many actors and singers and athletes blow their talent because they didn't master the inner game. And when you learn to master that, you can create from a place of peace and abundance far beyond what you ever thought possible.
Yeah. The interesting thing that I think should be said about too is, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel this way. When you go on this healing journey, because that's, healing your past is chapter for you, is I don't think that this ever there's no destination of this, because I feel like once you get past one thing, you find another thing, you find another thing, you find another thing. And I feel like it's just the human journey. Like we're always going to have something, and it's never gonna be like, oh my gosh, this not feeling worthy is eventually going to go away. It just might go from like a 9 to a 1 is what we're trying to get it to, but it'll still pop up sometimes. Like I'm sure with you, I swear this is a real thing. I get an email from Chartable every single week on my podcast in the reviews. And I'm like, shit, I hope there's not a bad one in there. Like that's the first thing that pops in my head versus like, dude, how many great reviews do we, like we have between, 30, 40,000 between a couple different platforms. And I think like, I hope there's not a bad one. And immediately I have to go, oh, there it is. That's still popping up inside of me. It's that little bit of judgment. It's like, let's look at it. And then you look and it's like all positive reviews. And we keep thinking of that little tiny piece of us inside of us of like, I hope everybody loves me. I hope that and it just shows me, I'm like, okay, looks like I'm still on this journey. Looks like I've still got more things that I've got to work through. And I don't think we ever get to a place of like, hey, I'm perfect. I feel perfect. And this is the way it's going to be. It's just like, hey, this is life. And this is a human experience where we get to a point where it's just a little bit less loud than it used to be in the past.
Exactly. I think that's the key. And my emotional coach tells me that healing is not it's a journey. It's not a destination where it's like, okay, I'm aware and now I've healed, even though I might feel better in my nervous system and I've healed. It's still a journey of ongoing healing because life happens, triggers happen, reactions happen, death occurs, breakup happens, people steal, lie, cheat, all these different things. And we've got to learn to face them courageously and with some grace in a lot of ways. And so we just don't go back to an old way of being that held us back. I'm still going to feel moments of overwhelm, moments of stress, moments of frustration or triggers, but I don't let it hold on to me for days or weeks or months or years like I used to, where I would hold on to resentment or anger or frustration, because I'm clear on a meaningful mission. And I ask myself at the end of the day, is this feeling or this resentment or this frustration or this reaction serving the mission? If it's not, what do I get to do next? What conversation do I need to face that I don't want to have? What do I need to release? What do I need to let go of? Do I need to talk to someone about it? What do I need to do courageously so that I can let this go and move back into the energy of peace and flow and abundance to serve the meaningful mission? And when we are looking to serve our egos, that's when we hold on to resentment, fear, frustration, not enoughness, judgment, comparison. But when we serve our mission, that's when we can let go of those things and be generous, kind, and giving.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. And I think that the important thing about it is always looking, like at the end of every one of my podcasts, 1,400 podcasts, I've said, make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. And it's people like message me like, why do you say that? Like, what's the point of saying it? Where'd it come from? And I just remember before I started the podcast, I was like, if I'm going to reach 20 people and we can just go, hey, these 20 people, half of them, 10 of them are like, I'm going to figure out a way just to make someone else's day better, just in a small way. And then we could spread that. It's like, how can we, if a virus can spread, how can we spread a virus of like, hey, let me just try to do something for somebody else. Like, let me try to see if I can help somebody in some sort of way. And I think it's like, you want to go for 100 million. That's a big number. But everybody that's listening right now could literally go, well, let me try to do something for someone else today. And if there's one thing that I know that gets you out of feeling like crap or feeling unworthy or feeling not good enough is when you go do something for somebody else and you see how they feel and then you start to feel better about it. There's nothing better. I mean, success, happiness, money, everything that you could go for, there's nothing better than when you see somebody else in their face and it's like, I just made that person's day better. Like there's that feeling is so important. And I love that when you have the meaningful mission, it is like the thing that pops in my head, it's like the North Star. It is your North Star. If this is where you're trying to go, you're going to make some incredible accomplishments. You're going to make a ton of money. You're going to have a lot of success and happiness. But the underlying theme that's going to go through the entire thing is like, how can I take this and help other people while I'm doing it as well? And that's the thing I think is the most exciting about the meaningful mission that you've created.
That's the key, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a question. First off, for anybody who wants to listen to your podcast, it is The School of Greatness. I said when I interviewed you the last time, your podcast is actually one of the reasons why I started my podcast. So imagine if Lewis had never made his, right? And then I would have never known what a podcast was 8 years ago because there wasn't many of them back in the day. So The School of Greatness. One of the things that you ask at the end of every single one of your podcasts, basically, you ask a few questions, but one of the things that I've loved since way back in the beginning was how do you define greatness? What does greatness mean to you? So you have the School of Greatness podcast, you have the School of Greatness book that came out, now you have the Greatness Mindset book as well. When you look at greatness, what does greatness mean to you?
For me, greatness is discovering and developing your unique gifts and talents, and using those to pursue your dreams. And in the pursuit of your dreams, making the maximum impact on the people around you. For me, that's greatness.
That's awesome. Lewis Howes, appreciate you for being here, man. I can't recommend your book enough. So let's, one more time, how can people find your book? How can they find you? Everything. I want them to go out and get this.
Yeah. The Greatness Mindset. You can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or anywhere, or you can just go to lewishowes.com/TGM for the Greatness Mindset to check it out. And let me know what you guys think. We'd love to hear your meaningful mission when you take the exercise as well in the book.
Lewis Howes, appreciate you, man. Thanks for being here.
My man. Thanks, Rob.